please. Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Okay, thanks. Please make sure to treat each other with dignity and respect during this meeting, and outside the meeting. And if you don't know something, please ask. Please step up and step back. Remember, everyone here is a volunteer, and together we share responsibility for staying on time. Today we have a packed agenda, so please bear with us as we're going to move, hopefully time efficiently, through all of our items. And next, please, next. Okay, thanks. So please, if you want to speak for any reason, please raise your hand by selecting reactions in your Zoom window, and then the raise hand button within that. And Paul, our chair, will call on raised hands in the order that they appear. And once you've spoken, please lower your hand so that we know that you are done speaking. And if you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Sophia has posted a link for credentialing in the meeting chat. And so please, while I'm speaking, if you can take some time to go to that Google form, that would be great. Oh, thank you. Paul, do you mind going back to the?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. If the chair needs to take a quick poll of the membership, they may ask you to choose yes or no in the reactions or participants panel. And we have disabled general chat, but if you are able to message the host directly if you need help. For technical difficulties, like you can't raise your hand, please reach out to, is it Cassandra or is it Paul or is it?
Oh, sorry. No, we need to update this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We will post in the chat who you can reach out to. And then for voting code help, you can also reach out to Tally. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, perfect. Okay, great. And we follow Robert's Rules of Orders for the meeting. So this is a set of parliamentary procedures that we use. If you don't know the details to participate, that's okay. Don't worry about it at all. You can raise your hand and we'll help you from there. And they are a little bit complex, but I will be later asking if to consider approving the agenda in the minutes. And so what that would look like is raise your hand and say, I move to approve, amend, or postpone the resolution. Let's see. You have a right to participate as a full member in our meetings. If you need us to slow down or explain anything, please just ask and we're happy to do so. And if you are really amazing at Robert's Rules of Order, please use your powers for good and consider the impact that make a complicated motion will have on the meeting. And we'll go from there. And next, I will go to our land acknowledgement. So although we are all joining virtually tonight, we'd like to start this event by acknowledging that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. And also, I'd like to note that the 43rd Dems are paying real rent to the Duwamish, and I'm really personally thankful that we are. So with that, thank you for going with me through that. The first thing that we are going to do outside of our norms is approving the agenda. So Paul is sharing the agenda here. And is there anyone who would like to move to approve the agenda? James,
I'll move to approve the agenda.
thank you. Are there any objections? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote by acclamation. And Paul, I'm new to this process, so is there anything I need to ask first? Okay, because we have no objections, we have unanimous consent, and thus we approve the minutes. Thank you, James. Okay, and we will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January meeting. Is there anyone on the call who would like to approve those minutes? Andrew.
I would like to move a motion to approve the minutes from January meeting.
Thank you. And I see a second in the chat. Are there any objections? Okay, perfect. Then by unanimous consent, we approve the minutes from January. Wonderful. And from here, we'll jump into our chair report. So I'm going to turn it over to our chair, Paul.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
So first up, we have a new board now for the 43rd. We had the election last month in January, and you just saw Emily Lake, our new vice chair, kick off the meeting here. Thank you very much, Emily. Later in the meeting, we'll walk through all of the area chair reports, and so you'll be able to meet and see all the new board members later in the meeting. So yeah, very excited to have a new board and a lot of good energy on our board. Second, I-135, the social housing initiative, which the 43rd endorsed. We had the election last Tuesday. I just checked this afternoon, and I believe that 135 is passing with more than 57% of the vote, which is awesome and incredible. I think we're probably the largest jurisdiction in the United States to have a social housing program. I'm so very excited to see this develop over the coming years as the Public Development Corporation gets stood up and we start building housing underneath that. I also wanted to note we had a Get Out the Vote concert a few weeks ago. A lot of thanks to Don Daly for organizing that. We had a lot of good energy there, a lot of good music to help get out the vote for 135. Next up, budget. We are going to be having a proposed budget for y'all to look at for the March meeting. We'll get a mail out to you all so you can review that budget in advance of the meeting. So just a heads up to look for that. And the last thing that I've got on my list here, because as Emily said, we have a very packed agenda, is that this is an election year. Most years are an election year, but we've got a lot coming up this year. We had the February special election for the social housing initiative, which just passed. We have another special election in April coming up. We'll hear about that at our March meeting. We of course have the August primary, the November general. At the August primary and the November general, we've got the city council districts are up. A bunch of King County council districts are up for election, in addition to other matters. So it's a really big election year in the 43rd here and in Seattle. So really excited to have all of your help get out the vote and bring some good energy to these elections so we can get some good progressive candidates in that represent our district. And I think right now for District 3, which is like the bulk of the 43rd, there's something like 6 or 7 candidates who've announced, and I think there's 2, 3, maybe 4 for District 4 for Seattle City Council. something like that. So lots of candidates. And with that, we'll turn next to some candidate introductions. I think that Joe Campagna was running a little bit late, so we might have to hold on that. But Corinne Wilson, are you here? Yeah, I see you there. I'll let you unmute so you can speak and introduce yourself for 2 minutes to the membership.
All right, I don't know if you can see me. Unfortunately, I got stuck in traffic and it's taken me 2 hours to get home. But so I am going to speak truly from the heart because I have no script, no outline of what to say. What I want to tell you is that I'm a judge and I'm running to retain my position because I love it. I love being a judge. It is a fantastic opportunity to make my life and my career really matter and to serve people and to see that justice is done. And I really think that we have a lot in common that way. I know that you're all here tonight because you want to make a positive impact on your communities. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I get to do. I have the privilege of doing every day as a Superior Court judge. Bring a lot of experience, more than 20 years of experience to the bench, tried a lot of cases. You can look me up on LinkedIn if you want to see the details, but I had the privilege of being involved in the first Zoom trial. And so in that way have gotten a lot of opportunities to be involved in changing the rules and making the rules and exploring the avenues of technology that we can use during this time to decrease the court backlog, because that's such a significant issue to everyone in our community, to really decrease that backlog and make sure that everyone gets justice on time. So I'm going to use that experience to promote justice, and I hope I can count on your support. Let me know if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you, Corinne. And it looks like Joe Campagna, are you here as well? I'll ask you to unmute.
Yes, I am here. And I do apologize. I have a little bit of background noise. I have some young helpers who are unhappy that they cannot assist me, but thank you for making time for me this evening. My name is Joe Campagna. I'm one of your 54 Superior Court judges. I was appointed last year by Governor Inslee. It's an honor to be here this evening. So just a little bit about me. Before this role, I was the King County District Court judge since 2018, when I ran for election and won. I was honored to be supported there by all the Democratic legislative districts in my area, as well as a broad range of unions. And then before being a judge, I was a lawyer representing people charged with crimes and also folks who were injured. So that's just a little bit about me. My values that I tried to bring to this role, though, I think are a much bigger part of this process. So this job is a public trust. We have immense power over folks' lives, and the only reason that the system functions is when everybody views it with trust. So I view that as a baseline role that we have to treat everybody with respect and with dignity. I also think we all have an obligation to make the whole system better. I did that at the district court by helping start the community court in Shoreline, which helps connect people who are charged with low-level offenses with the sort of resources that they need to help break out of the cycle of poverty in jail. And I will also do that at the Superior Court level by helping to further implement more evidence-based treatment programs in the prison system. There's not enough of them now, and folks need to have all the tools that they can possibly have so that they can be successful when released. So thank you all for your time. I'll have my email in the chat. I look forward to answering questions at any time, and I look forward to seeking your support later this year. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And just as a FYI for everybody, our endorsement meeting is going to be coming up later this year in the June meeting. So you can mark it in your calendars now and prepare for that important meeting. And I'm going to turn it over now to Dawn to introduce our speaker for Black History Month.
Thank you, Paul. It is my honor to introduce Kiana Wheeler, who has served the city of Seattle for over 20 years as as a person on the Office of Civil Rights and also as the Racial and Social Justice Deputy Manager of the City of Seattle, and as a DEIA consultant. She implements anti-racism, holds us unapologetically accountable, but also understands that we all must look at each other with kindness and as human beings. And I am beyond honored and privileged that she is speaking on behalf of Black History Month. And I would gladly, happily send this off to Kiana Wheeler. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Hey, y'all. I am so excited to be here. That is not, I do not like looking at my face like that, but we will deal with it. My name is Kiana Wheeler. I identify as Black. I use she, her pronouns. I am hoping that we could do a bit of dialogue. I want to share what may seem very simple as a framework for how we think through the way that we approach our work, but really want to do some dialogue with you and pull out the brilliance in the room. Is that all right for folks? Can we do that? Awesome. I want to start a little bit by sharing a bit about me so that you have a little bit of background. The first thing I want to say is that I'm horrible at timekeeping. Dawn and Andrew both know me, and I will overtalk a time chunk. So I'm going to ask for y'all to keep me on track.
Is she running for something? No, she's a speaker in honor of Black History Month. Oh.
I also want to let whoever just shared, you are off mute, and your conversation is available to all of us. I would want someone to tell me. So also just sharing that. So I'm a little nervous. It's been a minute since I have switched jobs and gone into consulting for government full time. And so I haven't been in front of folks the way I usually have. A little bit about me before we jump in is I started at the city, a wee youngin'. I was a early mother, and I had my son when I started college, in my senior year of high school. And so I went to college with my son and needed healthcare because that was a real thing, right? And so I ended up starting in customer service with the city. I had just graduated from UW with a BA in ethnic studies, and I promised folks were like lining up around the block to hire me for doing literary analysis. But I started the city with like real good intentions of just doing something great. I believed in government, I believed in politics, and I just thought we could really do something great. The folks on my team were wonderful. They said, just take your lunch at noon. We don't care what you do. And so from there, I was like, well, where do I fit? How do I do this work that I'm very interested in doing? And the Race and Social Justice Initiative, it was right around 2002, 2003, it was just getting started. And they asked, did anyone want to come learn? And I was like, right here, woohoo me. So they took us through years of training and really understanding what it means to live an experience that is either in the dominant society or in the marginalized society, like what does identity really mean, how that functions within the institutions, and then multiple institutions, how that functions structurally, and what that means, how that like presents in data and stuff. And so I ended up getting involved in race and social justice in a multitude of ways through different departments. And then it was like a team of three for a long time, because one of the things that's clear is we will resource what we believe in. So it was three people for a long time to work, race and equity work throughout the city. And when they finally opened up the team, I was able to get an opportunity to work with the race and social justice team on the team that sort of names the strategic plan for the city of Seattle. And then from there, like, just grew up in it. And I like to say that I grew up in government. Government raised me. And I believe in government's ability, but I also understand its limitations. I remember that I really believed government could sort of get us out of the predicaments we were in, socially, politically, economically, and then went to my first community meeting as a young person. I was with the city for 25 years, if that's helpful. Like, I was a really young person, went to my first community meeting, and they said, introduce yourself. And I said, I'm Kiana. I'm with the city of Seattle. And they kindly let me know that I had an entire humanity that was not based in my job or as a government entity, and that I needed to find that out before I could actually do the work that I think that I could do. So that led a long effort of figuring out what it means not to prioritize institutions and then bring people in, but what it means to prioritize people and families and community and connection and bring institutions along. And so just a little bit about who I am. That is how I met these beautiful folks, Don and Andrew. And Don, actually, that's not true. You were a student of mine at UW, is how I met you. I did organizational change through an anti-racist lens in museums, and that's how I met Don. So just sharing a little bit about me, I took, hopefully not, okay, good, just like about 5 minutes and shared, but I wanted to just connect us real quick to the work that we all do. And I'm gonna ask, real quick, I just wanna check logistics. We can come off mute and speak, is that correct? Is that...
People can raise their hands and we can unmute them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can people use the chat?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
We will try both things. The question that I am posing, and if I could get someone to write this in the chat, the question I am posing is, why do you come to this work? And just a little bit of framing around why do you come to this work, a little bit about that is we all come to the table for different reasons. We all got into politics for one reason or another. And just quickly, and take a few minutes, why did folks come to this work?
Those questions are now in the chat, Kiana.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Is it possible to go back to the big picture just so I can see different faces? Thank you. Anyone? I shared a bit about how I believed government could do a thing. Why did folks come? Someone says we all do better when we all do better. I'll say that. Because it needs to be done. It's a dirty job, someone's got to do it. Other reasons. Anybody feel called or led? It's hard work. It doesn't happen unless folks step up. Absolutely. Some of us are very special. Some of us won't go into that work. Well-being depends on your well-being. We are interconnected. Thank you for that one. Justice, fairness, health, yes. Everyone needs the same opportunity to seek their best life for themselves and their loved ones, giving everyone the opportunity to expand in their fullness of self. Absolutely. I became involved in politics because I was very worried about climate change and did not know what else to do. Absolutely. One of the things that, for me, as we get into talking about Black History Month this year, I am reminded so much. If you Google the theme of Black History Month, it'll say this year's theme is resistance. I think there's a lot of resistance that's been happening. And so like this year's theme for me is all about connection. And it's been very, very clear since COVID for me that we are more connected than we are separate. So much so that we were asked to isolate ourselves from people we don't even know. Like, just let that sink in for a second. I don't even know you. I'm not supposed to be around you. We're so connected that wherever you are, I was there 2 hours before, touching the same handle, doing the same things, eating similar meals, right? Like, we are so much more connected. There is no gate or barrier that can keep out something that is around our public health, our common health. We're more connected than we are separate. And so that's one of the things that I've been engaging with this year around Black History Month is the ability for all to see themselves in Blackness. We've been taught that white represents the general population and that we see ourselves in whiteness or white dominant culture, but we've never been taught to see ourselves in Blackness. And the fact that we're so connected and more connected than we are separate means that you can see yourself in me the same way I can see myself in you. I just wanted to hold that for a moment as we talk about why we all come to this work. I just want to know there's a couple additional things in the chat. Someone said to provide and protect our rights and find ways to continually implement justice to our community. And another talks about elevating voices and speaking for those who can't or don't have a platform. Before I swap to like a simple framework I use when I'm thinking about this work, does anyone want to share or come off mute and or in the chat and put something in the space? Thank you. Thank you. Are you all ready to swap and sort of think about our work? Awesome. One more logistical thing. Do I have share capabilities? I do not.
I'm going to make you co-host right now, so you do.
Thank you. I was going to say I can talk through this if that is not something.
You now have shared capabilities in our co-host, Kiana.
Thank you. So I want to spend just a moment talking about the concept of power and technically I was going to say technically my screen, my slides are out of order. So I never actually know what I'm going to talk about, but I want to share. This is one of the ways that I think about this framework. We're going to talk about power. I'm going to move through these pretty fast. Let me stop sharing. Just go to the slide I need. I always hate when we move too fast through slides and then my eyeballs caught something but didn't catch a thing. And so I just wanted to move through it. So I want to talk about the language that we use, diversity, access, inclusion. equity, anti-racism, decolonization, give a little framing for each, but ask folks to sort of connect with the information around the work and why these pieces are important, but understand there's differences, because we're going to talk about how it functions for change. So I want to start with just sharing, and again, this framework may seem simple, but you can dig into this for just ever. Promise, I still do. So as we think about, okay, so as we think about language, we begin with diversity. We've talked about and understood the ways that diversity has been applied over time. It is really about calculating variety, calculating difference, calculating categories. It's really about numerical. We can probably name a number of ways that diversity happened that we then never got to, let's say, the next one where we might be talking about access or inclusion or even equity. I think about busing as one of those examples, right? The whole intention was to diversify, but there was no clarity made for the effort or goal for that diversity to create, except for that folks were around different people, right? One of the things we don't talk about enough when we talk about diversity is what we're calculating is difference from the norm. There is a norm. That's how we have difference, right? And so when we calculate variety, we're calculating variety different from not just each other, but what is common or more practiced, or I hate to use language such as traditional, right? When we think about diversity, what folks are really hoping to get to is that we're giving people access to things, that we're giving people access to things, not simply that it is in front of them, but that they can interact with it, that if it is language, that it is in a language that people can utilize. If we are talking about physical locations, it is a place that people can get into. If we are talking about something where people generally don't have engagement with, it is putting that opportunity in front of them or opening that door. What folks are hoping that diversity gets to is that people feel that sense of internal power to be able to engage with information. I'm going to go 2 more and then I'm going to stop because I want to ask some additional questions, but don't forget anything that's coming up for you right now as I'm sharing. So when folks are getting a diversity of people to access information or organizations, what folks are looking for is for people to feel included. Inclusion happens at a very personal level. You can diversify and create all kinds of access, and folks can still not feel a part of something. They can feel that they are participating in something, but they may not feel a part of something. When I used to first engage with organizations who were seeking my help to do change work, one of the first things I would do would go to that organization and just, you would be amazed at how often I didn't get looked in the eye, right? Or if I was with, let's say, a male counterpart or a white counterpart, how often I would ask the question and they would respond to them, right? There's a sense of discomfort that people might feel with my presence or such, right? All those things connect to if someone feels included, not simply the context you put around them or the number of photos that might, reflect them, but there's a sense of belonging that happens when we talk about inclusion. I want to say for these 3, one of the things that we're often talking about, and this is the place where this framework is really helpful, one of the things we're often talking about is the other person. What do they need? How might they feel that they need support or empowerment or a platform? How much might we feel as government or politicians or people connected to government often might we feel that we have something that we can offer them or give them, right? This is really a place where it is about people change, about people being insufficient, about people being in need, that we can offer something, right? So this is a place where we might want to check that. Make sure that what we're doing is not saviorism. Make sure that what we understand is that the diversity of those folks who now can access the literature and are sharing what would feel inclusive, that we understand that there's brilliance there that we lack as an organization, right? We don't just have resources to offer, we lack something, which is why we engage and ask folks to help us understand. So just making sure we're not doing those, funky extractive things. I'm going to stop in this moment and ask, does anyone want to add? You can add the chat, you can raise your hand and put your voice in the space, but anything coming up for folks around this section? And I can't see the chat, so Dawn or others could help, that'd be great too. Anything in the chat?
There's nothing in the chat, Kiana.
Thank you. Which is really kind of good because I got 5 minutes and I'm going to go through the other 3. Not that I don't want anyone to share, but I'm just aware. So what often folks are trying to get to is equity when they're talking about these 3. Equity is something that serves the organization, it serves the institution while folks are accessing it, right? What equity is hoped for is a shift in not just access, but in power. But really, when we're talking about equity, there's still an entity that is identifying who gets invited to the table, right? It might be your entity even, right? Like these are places where we implicate ourselves. But it might be, but the organization often still gets to identify the people who get invited. They get to plan the agenda, really clarifying what is on or off the table to talk about. Often they have the budget to provide, right? And what folks want to do is equitably distribute those things. They want to make sure that there are voices that if they're not in the room, they get in the room. It's really inviting folks to the table is often how I think about it. Again, this is still in a space where the organization is talking about what it has to offer to a wide variety of people. The place that we really talk about wanting to do our work, though, is anti-oppression. This is often called anti-racism, anti-oppression, racial equity. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about justice. So those folks who are like, justice is my jam, what we're talking about is anti-oppression, anti-racism, racial equity, right? And what that means is that we are questioning the power at the table. And so anti-racism work, anti-oppression work is about questioning how power is functioning to maintain the status quo. When we're looking at policies, one of the reasons why I thought this would be useful is that when we're looking at policies and we're looking at all the bills and things that come in front of us, are they asking about power, which is what anti-racism, anti-oppression is doing? Are they questioning power's ability to hold the status quo in place? Are they shifting economic power? Are they shifting political power? Is it shifting social currency, right? Is it shifting from the margins to the center? And so this is the place where it is not about what other folks lack and what we might have to offer. This is about questioning, is what we doing going to undo what we've done historically? And so as you talk about different types of policies, it's really useful to think about where's the power lie in these, and if it is still in that you give and take space, or if it is in about shifting economic or political power. Power is the, and I'll give this definition, I should have had this put in the chat, my apologies, but the definition of power in political spaces, the definition of power is the ability to define reality for others and determine access to resources. And so if we think about the ability to define reality for others and determine access to resources. And if we think about that being a definition of questioning who holds all of that in our policies and our practices and in the work we do, then we can see that we are actually questioning the table, not just bringing folks to it, right? One of the last places I just want to note, we don't see this often, but decolonizing strategies, anti-racism, anti-oppression will never get to decolonizing strategies. Just to be clear, decolonizing questions the legitimacy of an organization to do what it says it does. The only place I've ever seen that, I'm sure there's many, but the place that was very clear to me is when there were questions about if policing actually gets to the safety that it says it does, when there were calls and questions to defund police. And so that is a decolonizing conversation. Does it actually do what it says it does? Is it a legitimate organization to meet that need, or are there others, right? So just, oh gosh, did I get it within the time frame? So just naming that these are different ways that we talk about this. They're all important, but realizing that when we talk about policies that come up and moving the needle, shifting economic and political power, what that actually would require and ask of us in our work.
Thank you so much, Kiana. We deeply appreciate the time that you have spent with us and taught us so much and are leading us hopefully well with this meeting and hopefully forward into the future. And we really appreciate building community with you. Deeply humbled, Kiana Wheeler. Thank you.
Honor to be with y'all today. And keep doing the organizing work you all do. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiana.
Okay. Thanks, Kiana. Right. All right. Once again, thank you, Kiana. That was very powerful reminder for us all. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have two presentations, one about ranked choice voting, one about universal healthcare. Ben Chapman, are you here? Yes, I see you there. Let me unmute you.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair.
Right.
Can I take it from here?
Yes.
Great.
We find you in all this, and I will spotlight you. There we are.
Oh, that is
for it.
alarming to see my face right there. Hello, everyone this evening. Thank you for sharing some more of your time to have me speak. My name is Ben Chapman, and I'm here to seek an endorsement or resolution from this group supporting ranked choice voting for presidential primaries in Washington. So ranked choice voting would solve a very clear problem in our presidential primaries. In 2020, because of our mail-in voting system, 25% of votes in Washington went to a candidate who would eventually drop out before our primary day. Think of folks like Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg. Put simply, we can do better than a voting system that disenfranchised 1 in 4 voters in our Democratic primary in 2020. So let's adopt ranked choice voting. With ranked choice voting in the presidential primary, you can vote for your favorite candidate, and if they drop out, or if they don't do well enough to get any delegates, you still get to support your next favorite. Every voter gets a say. Ranked choice voting helps select more representative governments, promotes more civil issue-based campaigns, and we adopted it here in Seattle last year, so it's time to start building this movement even further. So why am I here? Fairfield, Washington is advocating for the ranked choice voting for presidential primaries bill. It was introduced this year. We're hoping to build tons of momentum around it for 2024's legislative session. We need to show that there's not only support from ordinary people, ordinary voters. We've got that covered at Fairfield, Washington. We do a bunch of outreach to people on the streets, talking about why this bill is important to the everyday person. We also need to show that it's important to parties, because primaries are all about what the parties want to do. So that's why I'm asking for a resolution from the 43rd Democrats in support of the presidential primaries, ranked choice voting for presidential primaries bill. I will send along a draft resolution to your chair, and It'll have all the language you need to write that resolution, or you can simply do an endorsement, whatever way works best for you all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ben. Does anyone have any questions for Ben about ranked choice voting, how ranked choice voting might work, et cetera, for presidential primaries? You can just raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Jane, yeah, I saw your hand there. There you go.
This might be too detailed at this point, but there we are voting in the primary in March or whenever it's going to be. My person drops out. Is there, then they go back to my ballot from that, at that point, and see who I voted for next? Or how does that even work? Oh, no, it doesn't have to be individual. It's aggregate, right? No, nope, you have to do this. I don't understand how it would work technically.
There you go. You should be able to unmute yourself, Ben.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Great question. So the way the bill is written, and technically parties can do whatever they want with the ballots, because this is it's up to the parties. But what we would recommend, and what I think makes most sense, is that you'd rank your choices. And then if your favorite candidate drops out before primary day in Washington, that's when your vote would go to your second choice. So likely it's not going to happen that parties are going to go way back. You know, if later after March, more candidates drop out, they're not going to like retroactively change the result of the Washington primary. But this is to help catch those situations where candidates drop out right before primary day in Washington, because we come right after Super Tuesday. So there's lots of candidates dropping out, and it helps enfranchise those voters who mailed in their ballots early for a candidate who's going to drop out. If that makes sense. Good question. Thank you.
Stan has his hand raised.
Yeah, so that I hadn't actually heard of that before. I think that's actually a minor argument in favor of ranked choice voting. To me, though, the mechanics are important, and I'm glad you explained that. But the behavior that you get in ranked choice voting is different, and that I think is where the real power comes from. As a candidate, you see four rivals in the election, or three, and you're pretty sure you're not going to get 50% plus one in the first round of counting. So you have to appeal to other candidates' voters. And so the behavior, aside from the mechanics of it, the behavior is that it's much harder to be polarizing. You will be punished for polarizing, and you will be rewarded for having a broader base of support, including people who chose someone else as their first choice, but you appeal to them to be your second choice. And you saw that in the New York mayoral race, right, where they had ranked choice voting, right? And the candidates would actually get together and say, look, if you're not voting for me, at least vote for me second. And this other candidate and I are pretty close, and y'all for him vote for me, and y'all for me vote for him, right? That kind of thing. And I think that's why the Republicans hate it in Alaska, is because their strategy is to be polarizing. And so ranked choice voting, I think, hurt the Republicans in Alaska. So again, I appreciate the point you made about, but by the time I cast my ballot, it's only a week or two for my candidate to drop out before the election, right? So this behavioral thing, I think, is a stronger feature of the ranked choice voting.
Great. Yeah, I fully agree. It's we have this side benefit for why it's so important, I think, in Washington that we pass this bill. But like you're saying, ranked choice voting has so many benefits on its own. And I think as a group that supports Democratic candidates, I think it's worth mentioning and kind of driving that point home that when you have ranked choice voting in a primary, that means the candidates aren't spending as much time beating each other up. And that means they're not coming out of the primary as bruised. It also means that the primary electorate is able to elect a candidate who represents their party even better, and therefore has a stronger chance going to the general. So I think that's a big argument for why a party would want to embrace ranked choice voting in the primary.
All right. We have time for one last really quick question, if anyone has a question. Okay, thanks, Ben.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
send over that draft and we'll take a look at it, and we may consider it for endorsement at a later meeting.
Sounds great.
Well,
Thanks
thank
so
you.
much. Really appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you. All right, next up, Andre Stackhouse, are you here? Do we have someone here to talk to universal health care? I am not seeing Andre in the list. Okay. We'll see maybe if we can bring Andre back for another meeting. But let me just put this into the chat so everyone has it. One second here while I spin things up. There's a statewide universal healthcare bill that is in consideration. Oh, I'll take care of it later in the meeting. I don't want to take up more time right now. All right. We will move on to the next item in the agenda, which is resolution on a wealth tax. And I think we have Sean Scott here to speak to what the nature of this tax is, what the tax money will be used for, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank
thanks so much, Paul, and good to be with everybody in the 43rd LD this evening. I'm going to start with a little bit of background. When the state Supreme Court in 1933 overturned the will of the people of Washington State by overturning the wealth tax that voters at that time elected to approve, I think the seeds of inequality in Washington State were in a lot of ways really firmly planted. During the Great Depression, Washington was really at the forefront of a lot of democratic reforms with an initiative process that allowed everyday people to address public affairs directly. And in the same November 8th, 1932 election in which Franklin Roosevelt was elected president with his vision for, a New Deal, a powerful coalition of Washington teachers looking for better pay, farmers who were tired of property taxes, as well as anti-poverty organizers, banded together to pass what was then the first ever income tax in Washington State. Stop me if you've heard this part of the story before, but that tax initiative was overturned by anti-tax backlash that was led by the Seattle Times in 1933. And in many ways, I think we're still grappling with the impact of that decision. Today, we really see the far-reaching impacts of that business backlash and of the resulting economic inequality in galling wealth disparities and expensive childcare costs that hamper working families. We see the roots of that inequality still played out in unaffordable public colleges that in a lot of ways punish young people for the crime of trying to seek an education. We see plummeting wages for teachers and for caregivers in often as not state-supported institutions, and in a lack of disability services for the aged and the disabled of all ages in Washington State. So the measure in really in front of us that I know we're going to have a lot of support for between Senate Bill 5486 and also its House Bill companion 1473 would go a long way towards addressing these inequities by making the rich pay what they owe. It would address these inequities by steering that revenue towards education, towards disability justice, and towards housing stability. That money would help to reduce the current backlog of over 17,000 Washingtonians who are on an unfair disability services waiting list. At Statewide Poverty Action Network, my day job, I've worked really in depth this year with Representative Chop's office to try to convene an in-depth stakeholdering process with the disability justice community to see what the areas for need are and how this tax revenue could address it. The money would, from the wealth tax that Senator Frame in the 36th LD has also, worked really hard to steward, would go towards a Washington Housing Trust Fund to help build and preserve the sort of truly affordable housing that, all of us in the 43rd LD support as we, gave as much support as we did to the I-135 initiative, which passed. And that money is really going to come from some of the absolute richest individuals in Washington. I mean, we're talking about no more than about a dozen households. And the impact is going to be felt, I don't want to say immediately, but I do want to say deeply. We have a state where about 10% of all Washingtonians live in poverty and another 25% live adjacent to the federal poverty line. I think that's wrong. When Washington teachers have to go on strike for better wages in one of the richest states in the union, I think something is wrong with that scenario. When you have schools and disability services shutter in a state where 8 of America's richest people grow fortunes that are numbered in the billions, something is really, really wrong. And I think a lot of that can be addressed by creating a more fair tax code, which is what House Bill 1473 and Senate Bill, 5486 are all about. With as many economic justice champions as I know as we have in the 43rd, I don't suspect we're going to have a ton of opposition to hopefully supporting this resolution, but it was really, really great to be able to answer the call that was put out by Don and Paul to be able to, speak to motivating this resolution and hoping that we can, get something close to a unanimous vote so we can make a statement.
Linda has her hand raised, Sean.
Linda.
Yeah, just have a question. I want to clarify something. I thought you said that the money would go strictly to housing, but I think the bill analysis says that it goes to some other things like support services, which is also a crucial need. Can you clarify that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really good question, Linda, and sorry if I misspoke. So there are three or four policy buckets that have been identified that the revenue from the wealth tax are going to go towards. And it's important to realize that many of these do overlap. One of the things that we heard in the stakeholdering process with Representative Chop's office is that there's actually significant overlap that goes too often uncommented on between housing justice and housing accessibility and accessibility generally, that some of the greatest housing need that exists in Washington exists among populations that also have accessibility needs, that need to be close to be at work, public, parks or outdoor space or things of that nature. So we're talking about 4 discrete policy buckets that overlap with one another. Number one is the housing component and the housing trust fund and the use of the money towards acquiring, building, preserving, maintaining truly affordable housing. The second part has to do with education, broadly defined. Some of that has to do with teacher wages. Some of that has to do with disability services in state-supported schools. I think another component has to do with disability justice considered apart from those previous 2 issues. So I'm mentioning the disability services waiting list, wages for caregivers. I mean, I've actually just gotten out of the Appropriations Committee, the House Appropriations Committee earlier, where they were talking about the problems in recruitment and retention for caregivers at a time when that is a job that is as important as almost any other as you can think of. So those are really the three main ones. I will go back over the bill language to see if there are any specifics that I may have missed, but it's those three distinct issues and also paying attention to where it is that they might overlap as well. So thanks so much for the question.
Thanks, Linda. Are there
Thank
any other
you.
questions about what the wealth tax is, what it will cover, et cetera, for Sean? And I've put the link to the resolution that we'll be voting on in chat, so you can open it up and take a look at it.
I'm going to go ahead and also drop the actual bill.
Like,
you know, the intent language is, which is the first section that you see, is generally going to be the most accessible part as far as the language being the clearest. So anybody who wants to take a look at what actually the substance of the bill is, you can go ahead and take a look at it at that link as well.
Thanks, Sean. Anyone have any more questions about the bill before we turn towards picking up the resolution? Okay. Thanks for that explanation, Sean. Super helpful as always. All right, so we have a resolution. Oh, wait, sorry. Ken has a question. What are the mechanics to retain the top 1% in Washington? Also, is there any update to the 2018 data it is built upon? By Ken, just by retain in Washington, you mean so they don't just leave the state? I'm assuming. And you can, if you would like to ask your question directly, we can unmute you here.
I'll wait a couple of seconds before responding to see if Ken might want to come off mute. So this is a really, really good question. One of the great things about targeting a wealth tax bill that really identifies some of the richest individuals in Washington state is that there actually aren't that many mega rich people in Washington state. And it makes it very easy actually to identify what the ties some of these individuals might have to the state might be, how long their businesses have been anchored here, such that when you're talking about taxing a multinational corporation, which I think to the spirit of Ken's question, there's always the concern that I think that's repeated often, that corporation can pack up and leave. We're actually talking about people that have had long-running addresses, businesses that have been anchored in the state for quite a while, such that I think we have less of a flight risk for these no more than a dozen individuals than we do for other individuals. So that's the way that I would answer the question. And we're not talking about the 1% in Washington state as much as we are talking about the 1% of the 1% of Washington state. I mean, if you're somebody that has assets in excess of $250 million on this call, you can go ahead and put your hand up on Zoom as a reaction. I don't think we have many of those folks who are here. So that puts, most of us, or pretty much all of us, in the camp where I think we would really stand to gain from, seeing some of these rich individuals that I think have gotten by pretty well through a lot of state support over the years. I mean, so that's why I think, this is such an important bill, and the timing for it couldn't be better. A direct statement of support for the Gates Foundation. I couldn't tell you that. I know that the Gates Foundation has joined the call over the years for better funded schools that would help out with its white collar knowledge workforce. I would assume that somebody who works at the Gates Foundation, they drive to work on roads that are often overcrowded because we don't have enough transit and transport options in the state. And that too is a revenue issue. And so I think that we're pretty clear on what the politics on some of the uber wealthy in the state of Washington have been as they've been expressed in local elections. But I think that there is going to be a lot of support for this tax, and that the benefit is going to be shared very widely as well.
All right. Thank you for those questions. I'll put the link to the resolution text in chat again. So it's there if you would want to read it. I will also share my screen so that y'all can see it here. Share. Hopefully this is large enough. So this resolution, I'll just quickly walk through the resolution. The resolution is to support the wealth tax bills. This is Senate Bill 5486 and House Bill 1473. The whereases talk about the need for it, what the bill is, what it would be used for, including, as Sean was mentioning, our funding crisis in public schools and housing and homelessness and disability services, transit, etc. And then the therefores are that the 43rd supports the creation of a wealth tax through these bills that would fund these needed services, and further resolve that we call on all the Democrats in the state legislature, and particularly our representatives Peterson, Chop, and Macri, to wholeheartedly support the passing, and that we thank Representatives Chop and Macri for co-sponsoring the bill. And so with that, are there any questions that anyone has about the resolution? Just because this is distinct from the wealth tax bill itself, this is questions about the resolution. If you do, please raise your hand and we'll address them. Yes, Linda.
So just to clarify, the resolution actually lists more uses for the money than we were talking about earlier. I'm not saying I object. I'm just saying they don't quite match. Is that right?
Correct. Here, hold on, give me just a second and I will pull up the House bill. Or I will attempt to pull up the House bill.
One thing I would, while you're pulling that up,
yeah, thanks, Sean.
I would mention that, you know, one of the real reasons that it was such a huge political loss 90 years ago when we lost the income tax is that there was an immediate need in 1932 for what that income tax would have looked like, but times obviously changed subsequently a great deal over the next century, such that the revenue that could have been used from that income tax on a lot of different causes, it simply wasn't there. We're in a similar situation now where I think even though this bill, you know, much like the bill 90 years ago was specifically about alleviating the economic plight of farmers, and there were a lot of concerns about roads at that point in time. They were designated for specific purposes, but the revenue stream and the income tax itself could transcend them over time. I think we're in a similar position now, where this is being brought into the House and hopefully into fruition with a specific set of material needs. But I also think it's appropriate to speak more broadly about how the budget crunch and general recurring revenue crises kind of impact our ability to pay for a lot of the things that are listed out in the resolution as well. And you can just as easily imagine, you know, a scenario in another 40 years where hopefully once this revenue source is established, we're able to go back to it for other purposes once we have, you know, some of the immediate questions addressed, if that makes sense.
So the bill specifically talks to education, housing, support for people with disabilities, special education, So the Education Legacy Trust, Washington Housing Trust, Disability Care Trust, as well as new taxpayer justice account is intended to offer credits against taxes paid disproportionately by low income and middle income families. As Sean was noting, like we have an over reliance upon certain types of taxes, and paying for some of these things from a wealth tax allows us to free up money from those taxes for other things as well.
And of course, Linda found the most straightforward way of answering the question as well, which is that it does specifically say in the bill other purposes as well. So there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions about the resolution? Okay. Would someone like to motion that we adopt this resolution? If so, please raise your hand. Linda, see if we, okay, Linda.
I move we adopt the resolution.
All right, thanks. Is there a second?
I'd like to second that.
All right, thanks, Amy. Okay, with that, I will ask first if there are any objections to adopting this resolution by acclamation rather than going to a vote. If anyone objects to adopting by acclamation, Sophia has a voting form ready to go that we will use to do a tallied vote. Are there any objections to adopting this resolution by acclamation? If so, please raise your hand. Are there any objections to adopting this by acclamation? If so, please raise your hand. Sophia?
I just got a message from Ken Wilson that he objects.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ken. If you, Sophia, if you can put the link to the voting form in the chat. While you're doing that, I will also once again put the link to the resolution text in here.
Put the voting link in the chat. I am working with one person currently who sent me a message asking for a voting code, but everything can go through while doing so.
All right. Thank you, Sophia. Let me just pull up the form here. So everyone who is eligible to vote should have received a voting code this afternoon that came from Sophia. So look for Sophia's name in your inbox. Sophia's been working really hard to give everyone voting codes who hasn't had one. So the process here is paste your voting code into here or type your voting code in. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Linda. We were so heavy on the pro side. Yes, Linda is correct. Is there anyone who would like to speak against the resolution? If so, please raise your hand. And again, thank you, Linda, for stopping me and getting us corrected here. Is there anyone who would like to speak against the resolution? I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Without someone who is willing to speak against it, we'll move on. So last chance. Does anyone who wants to speak against it?
I don't want to speak against it, but there's a chat from Sean that is asking for a website for the tax vote to be put on screen.
Sorry, meaning the URL for the.
That's right.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I will repaste the voting code, the voting form in there. That should work to get you what you're seeing here. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone who wants to speak against. We've had explanation of the. We've had an explanation of the bill, explanation of the resolution. Okay, so with that, we will go to a vote. Again, put your voting code in here. When you do that, there is a dash in the middle of your voting code. Make sure you include your dash in that. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And we'll hold the voting open for a bit, about 10 minutes. And while we do that, while we have the voting, we'll continue on with our meeting, and we'll come back in about 15 minutes or so after all the votes are in and Sophia has a chance to tally it up. And
I will remind everyone that you have to be signed in on the credentials form for your votes to count. I will be pasting that link again. So if you haven't done so, please sign in.
this is the second form is the credentials form, correct, Sophia?
Yeah, I am pasting in both links right now.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about how voting works before we move on? Okay, so just one more summary. Use the credential sign-in form to sign in to make sure you're credentialed to vote. That is not the vote for or against the resolution. That just signs you in as a voting member. And then second, click the second link to get to the voting form, and then put your voting code in that form. Sophia has gotten voting codes. Everybody, if you don't, please send an email to tally@43rddemocrats.org. Okay. And with that, while we're voting, okay, voting will continue while we move on for time. I'm going to turn the gavel over right now to Emily to take us through the committee chair intros and committee reports. So
Thanks,
thank you very
Paul.
much, Emily.
Thanks. So I'm gonna ask for our committee chairs to do a brief introduction of themselves and then talk about what is going on with your committee and what you'd like to share. So I'm going to start with Brad in finance.
Hi, I'm Bradley Bell, and I'm the treasurer of the 43rd. And this is my third term, I think. So it's been a few years. And yeah, like Paul said earlier, next month we should have a vote on our budget for the remainder of the year coming up. So check out the agenda for that meeting for what the details of that will be. Yeah, always feel free to reach out if you want to know more about the process or want to get involved. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, and next we are going to Jacob with elections.
You have to come back to me.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, is Cody with PCO updates on the call?
No, Cody's actually on vacation right now, but I will speak to some of the things that Cody had. So Cody is PCO chair. There's two things. He is looking for assistance running PCO. So the PCO chair and program is all about getting out the vote and empowering the precinct committee officers to engage with their neighbors on the issues that the 43rd and the candidates the 43rd has endorsed. Last year, we had an election of PCOs. So we have something around 55 elected PCOs right now. We have a much larger number of empty precincts. And so we are going to be actively recruiting for new PCOs to take over those empty precincts and help us in our get out the vote efforts. What does it mean to be a PCO? Well, one thing is you get voting privileges within the 43rd. The second thing is you will get to participate in a lot of get out the vote efforts, both at in the 43rd as well as King County in general and across the state. It's a pretty key role in helping us promote the values and the candidates and the issues that the 43rd cares about. And it's a great way to get involved with the 43rd and see what we're about. So if you have friends, neighbors, maybe even enemies who don't live in your precinct, who might be interested in being a PCO, you can let them know that we're going to have some openings, and we'll get a message, a mail out to everybody with the precincts that are open, so we can get some appointed PCOs. That's what I've got.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Okay, we are going to go back to Jacob with elections.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have a light up here that won't work, and I think it was overloading my USB hub. So anyway, got that working. Yeah, I'm Jacob. I'm the elections chair for this cycle. Right now, the main focus for what I'm doing is just kind of getting a handle on how many, or like every candidate that has announced so far, because more come every day. We touch a lot of districts now. And once we kind of have that ready on the back end, then I think we'll start getting more involved with, I guess, all of the rest of the membership, like endorsement meetings. Dawn or somebody else might be talking about some fun events we have coming up soon. So yeah, if you are interested in helping out, please reach out. We've had a couple people. I won't be able to tell you anything to do yet because I'm still getting processes ready, but it would be good to know who's interested. So yeah, a lot of back end stuff right now, but nice to see everybody.
Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate it. Okay, do we have James Williams on the call for membership?
I don't think James was able to make it tonight.
Okay, then we will go to James Barker.
So, sorry, but I will say one thing. Again, we want to keep building up the 43rd membership. The more members we have, the more influence we can have in elections with on issues, etc. So again, if you have friends, family, etc., who are not members of the 43rd, please reach, and they live in the 43rd, please reach out to them and encourage them to get involved. Anyone can attend the meetings, so we'd love to have people who are not even members come and attend the meetings. But if you are a member, you get additional privileges like voting, etc. So thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, James Barker with communications.
Hi, everyone. I'm James. I was recently elected for the first time to chair the communications committee, and we are getting a handle on all the communications tools. As we don't yet have a slate of endorsed candidates or causes for this year quite yet, it's time to start building. I'd love to recruit a couple members for a communications committee. So please reach out to me via the communications at 43rddemocrats.org email alias, and I'd love to talk to some people, especially with experience leveraging social media. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, James. I appreciate it. Okay, next is Nosheen with fundraising.
Hi, everyone. We are looking for volunteers to join the fundraising committee. We have a lot of exciting events to look forward to, like Ballast and Bubbly and Pride Brunch coming up in the next couple of months. Historically, we've used these fundraisers to help with our GOTV activities and other sort of mobilizing activities. And so I'd love your support. We have a lot of fun stuff planned. And, you know, with COVID and the pandemic, I think this is a really great opportunity to bring the community together. So if you're interested, please let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Nosheen. Appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Do we have Camille on the phone?
No, she's also
Okay.
not able to make it. She, so if y'all didn't know, Camille was part of the group, the cohort that was really working tirelessly to get social housing 135 passed. So I think she's a little on the exhausted side right now, because that was quite a long, hard effort, but thankfully very successful. Camille runs the Policy and Advocacy Committee, doing things like looking at bills that are coming up, making recommendations on things that we should support, policies we should support, resolutions we should take up in order to support bills and issues, etc. And so if you're interested in participating on that, you can reach out and we'll get you connected.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, we will go to Dawn for meetings and events.
Hi, Nosheen. Hi, Paul. Hi, Emily. To piggyback on what Nosheen and Paul were both saying, we're still kind of settling, and we have finalized the initiative 135 Get Out the Vote concert. There have been some pleasant reverberations and media reverberations on that passing that many of us have been honored to be a part of. We are working with Nosheen and Paul and many here in the 43rd, and are very thankful for past 43rd members and former chair Scott Alsbach and Maddie and Tara for their help and advice on the Balance and Bubbly event. And if you would like to volunteer for the events and meetings chair, we would really love to have you for Get Out the Vote campaigns and really fun, cool, creative, innovative ways that we can get out the vote and make a difference here in the 43rd. Come volunteer, let's have fun, let's do rad things for the 43rd. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Dawn. Okay, and next we have Rob with technology.
I think Rob's is not able to make the meeting today. He asked me to run the tech, so but I could get a quick update. I guess mostly we are just with a new tech chair. We are just doing knowledge transfer and training and putting together a list of tasks that we want to do to improve our tech going forward. If anybody is interested in if anyone is interested in joining the tech committee, please email tech@43rddemocrats.org. I think that's it.
Thanks, Sophia. And I'm calling on you and Andrew next for the King County Reps section. So I'll leave your spotlight on. And Andrew, I'll add one for you as well.
Yeah, so during the last King County meeting, it was our first meeting with LIS members, so more or less just went through introductions and did some reach out for people to join in the various different committees, and also did some recruiting to do get out the vote work for I-135, which passed, so yay. And yeah, I think that is most everything.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophia. Appreciate it.
And just as a note, I am seeing many people who is not signed in voting. So you have to be signed in for your votes to count. I just posted those links again. So, and I did send people direct messages for that. So please double check that you did sign in.
A good reminder. Thanks, Sophia. All right, and over to Amy and Sam, our state reps.
Hi, everyone. So my awesome seatmate, Sam McVitie, is also on the call, but we touched base and I'm going to do an overview and then Sam and I can answer any questions you might have. So I'll try to keep this somewhat quick. So the Washington State Democrats at our last meeting reorganized. And we have elected a new chair, Shasti Conrad, who you all know from King County Democrats. Under Shasti's leadership, King County Democrats became one of the most effective, just phenomenal model to the rest of the nation when it comes to county party organizations. And I have no doubt Shasti is going to do the same work with the state party. She is the first Indian American woman to chair a state party. So we made history this January. And so we also reelected David Green as vice chair. He's been doing a great job helping support Shasti, introduce her to other DNC members, and help ease the transition. And we also reelected Rob Dolan, the 43rd's very own Rob Dolan, to secretary. And I would like to give a shout out to Andrew Ashiofu, who's also on the call tonight, who was elected chair of the Stonewall Democrats. And I've been a member of the Stonewall Democrats for many, many years now as a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I am so excited about the leadership that Andrew has already shown as Stonewall chair. He's already mobilizing the organization and giving folks from our community a place to, organize within the state party. I am stepping down as a board member of the Environment and Climate Caucus. I was one of the founding members, and it's a really sad thing to step down, but I had to do so because I was elected by my peers in the Congressional District 7 area, fellow state committee members from neighboring areas, and DNC members from Congressional District 7 to represent Congressional District 7 on the state party's executive board. So I will be a part of that team helping run the state party and helping support Shasti and her transformative, inclusive vision for the party. And one other thing to report on, we did consider a resolution on water rights, but we sent that back to the sponsor because we wanted to ask that they work with the Native American caucus on that. There were some concerns raised by folks from that caucus that their concerns weren't taken into consideration with the wording of the resolution. So that's going back to the drawing board. Our next meeting is going to be May 6th, and it is going to be in South Seattle at the Machinists Hall. So if you'd like to come see how things go within the state party, if you'd like to be part of that, likely there will be fundraising and event opportunities for you to come and join us and come be part of the Stonewall Caucus and the Environment and Climate Caucus and other organizing bodies within the state party. So we would really like to invite you to come to that, and I will be sending out more information. The big work that we have before us in the next few months is finalizing the delegate selection plan for 2024 to make sure we have smooth elections and everything is as inclusive as possible. And as always, if you have any questions for me, please email me. I will put my email in the chat. And Sam, I'd love to ask if you have anything to add.
Gosh, very little. That was lovely. Thank you. And I mean, since this is my first term in the state committee, I'm just really trying to learn from you, Amy, and really excited to have Shasti as our new chair. And congratulations again on being CD7 rep. That was well deserved.
Thank you, Sam. I don't know if we have time for any questions, Paul. Okay. If anybody has any questions about the state party, about the caucuses, about anything that Sam or I have said, please feel free to ask. And if not, I'll just encourage you to join the Environment and Climate Caucus, join the Stonewall Caucus. I can send out a list of all of the caucuses available to you. There are so many ways to get involved, and we'd love to have your support with all of the organizing work we do as a state party. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate the update from you and all the work that you're doing on the state level. And I think that I am turning it back over to Paul for the good of the order.
I'm on mute. Thank you, Emily. Sophia, do we have results on the resolution? I'll mute you.
Sorry about that. I am closing the votes right now. And they have been closed. I have the results here. We have 18 approve and 0 reject and 0 abstain. One person I think tried to vote reject, but their voting code was not valid. So therefore, I apologize that their vote is not being counted. Otherwise, it is approved.
All right. Thank you very much, Sophia. And before we go into the good of the order, I just want to say a couple more things. We are pulling together a volunteer and getting more involved sign up form. So look for an email about that in the coming days. We'll get that out. King County Democrats also has a volunteer sign up form, which we can include as well if you want to get more involved at the county level, in addition to getting involved with 43rd. So look for an email on that so you can see the various opportunities to get involved in the 43rd, and give us your contact info so we can follow up with you. All right, and with that, good of the order. Oh, let me just also say thank you everyone for voting on the resolution, and congratulations on passing a resolution in support of a tax on extraordinary wealth. So thank you. Pamela, for good of the order.
Oh, thank you. My name is Pam, and I'm a member of PASARA. That's the Puget Sound Advocates for Retirement Action. And I'll start with the invitation because it's been a long meeting, and I'll get that out as folks, I'm sure, start to drop off. We are, PSARA is doing a webinar on March 20th at 5 p.m. with Dr. Ed Weisbart of the Physicians for a National Health Program. And the webinar is entitled, Don't Let Naked Profiteering Destroy Our Medicare. And I'm going to put the registration in the chat if I can make that happen. Yes. There we go. So what this is about, big business and Wall Street are turning Medicare into a profit center at the expense of senior citizens, people with disabilities, and taxpayers. The Democratic State Party platform in 2022 opposes privatization of Medicare in any form, such as Medicare Advantage. There's a new program called ACO REACH, direct contracting. And the webinar will help to educate the public on the danger of privatization. And it's happening, right under our noses. And it's really, I believe, and my organization believes, it's an existential threat. So hope that you can attend the webinar. Dr. Weisbart is really well known in his field, and I think we'll all know a little more than what we did when we went into it. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Linda.
Yeah, it's John who actually wants to speak. He's been here all
right.
So you have to get close so you can be seen.
Yes, I would just like to repeat a recurring theme in my case, that there needs to be entertain the idea of an industrial policy to make a green transition and to also rearm, because Vladimir Putin has basically smashed the whole idea that we're going to be living in a peaceful world where we can, forget about war. That idea is completely over with. And an industrial policy, it's something that Lester Thurow was promoting a lot. It's the idea, and we have aspects of it right now. We have aspects, like, for example, the government did massive computer research in academia, and then capitalists took advantage of it to create the information age that we have today. It's just a matter of making it into a national program. Now, another example was the Second World War. We had the war economy that took the entire economy and subordinated to the war effort. In this case, it would be the green transition, and it would be all other social goals that we think are worth it. And what it would do is, have priorities for the economy, whereas free enterprise is just like, whatever you want to do it. You want to sell pet rocks? I mean, you want to, look at all this mindless entertainment and frivolities that Americans spend their money on. And another one is housing. Do we have affordable housing in this city? It's extinct. We don't have it. I remember how it used to be in this city. I've been here for 50 years. Anybody could afford to live here in the past, not anymore. So that's another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Are there anyone else for good of the order? Anyone else?
Amy has her hand raised.
Amy.
Sorry. Yeah, everyone, I just want to underscore that if you can volunteer to be on the Ballots and Bubbly Committee, it is going to be so much fun. And we want to support Nosheen and Dawn in their work in making this a successful event. Even if you just want to schlep stuff around, or you want to help and be at the door to take tickets, even if you want us to help in a small way, you could really help make these two amazing people's lives easier by being on the committee. So please contact them and be part of that committee. We want to make this the most successful event we can make it and raise a lot of money so that we can support our candidates and the issues that we care about. Oh,
Thank
and if you want to volunteer to support the wealth tax, please do contact Sean. His contact information is in the chat.
Thank you, Amy. Anyone else for good of the order? What is the date of the fundraiser? Dawn, do you want to speak to that, or Nasheen?
Tentatively May 16th, but we have an ask for May 20th and May 21st. So one of those 3 dates, the 20th of May, let's just assume there. That's a good question. Thank you for asking it.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else for good of the order? Anyone else? Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for a great meeting. We had a lot of things on the agenda. Thank you for sticking with us. Next month, March, we're still in process of working out what the agenda is. If you have any suggestions, anything you would like to hear from, any people you like to hear presentations from, please don't hesitate to reach out. As I mentioned earlier, we will get out a volunteer sign-up form, so you can see all the volunteer opportunities and have an opportunity to give us your contact information so that we can get in touch with you and get you involved with the 43rd. And with that, can I have someone motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good night, everyone.
Later.
Hello all.
Dawn, can you stop the YouTube?